Today I want to show you how you can work with your own samples using only built-in tools on a Mac. This is very important, on a Mac in a very basic setup. We're now in a rack space, which is where I'll just go ahead and start. We right-click in the field here and then see our plugins again. We'll go over the overall setup again at some point. If we scroll down to installed plugins under Apple, we have AU Sampler here. Let's just open that up now, and then this window appears here. Here you can do a few things. Up here you can toggle the bypass, which you can actually do with all plugins you open. With the three dots, you can enable the preset manager here. Here I can load, save, and import presets. I can, this is also very interesting, load FXP files. So this sampler can also load the AXS sampler from, is that what it's called? Yes, access from native instruments. I can load user presets here, which it remembers directly. We can also use this sound designer here again, then through the plugin and cancel. So default instrument, here we can set the polyphony, meaning how many voices it should have at the same time. Then here the output, which is currently set to default, I can transpose here. Here I have the option to import instruments from DLS or EXS file. That's pretty cool, which means I can really prepare things properly there. I've already tried that and it works. For example, I also used the MainStage auto sampler. I think it's called auto sampler. Sampled something and then loaded it in here. Works perfectly. Up here you can see the output. Here I can assign multiple controllers, which I can later control via the widgets. Here it's the same. Tuning, pan, and volume. And then down here we have the layer for the samples. You can create different layers. For now, we'll just keep this layer, layer 1. Right now we have a sine wave in here and down here. With the plus button, you can search for a new sample. We'll go into MacBook here. Instead, let's go under users here. First, you need to navigate to the Kick Performer section and then look directly under the Samples tab to find what you need. And right here in this area, I have already gone ahead and loaded several different samples for us to work with. I will just demonstrate the process for you right now. For example, we can start with this particular one here. Now that we have it loaded, although I am not entirely sure if it is coming through clearly, as you probably cannot hear the audio output right now. We are looking at the specific settings for the up-down funk sample. What can I do here now? I can see the file name here, see the hertz values, and that it's in stereo. I can set looping here, which means when I press the button, of course, you can't hear anything right now. Let me just connect it here to the audio mixer, and then you should be able to hear something like this. I can't hear anything right now because I don't have the sound on, but hopefully it's recording. Hang on, I just need to turn my sound back on here. There we go. Now there's sound coming through. Now we can set the key range here, and on the root I have the sample in its original key. And now you can already hear here, if you hold it down, the thing loops, but I don't actually want that right now. So now I can restrict the key range here. You can just type that in. Simple. I'm just going to do C1 now. So now I can see the sample here. Now there are several options. I can also set the velocity range here. Then this is a cool feature. Tracks pitch on and off. If I have it on and, for example, change the range here to E, then you'll hear that it's transposing. If I switch to off, I have the same pitch everywhere. That's pretty cool for certain things. I can select a key group here that I can create. I can also select the output here, which also comes through the layer. Then I can change the volume for each sample individually here. I'll just show that here. Set the pan, and now I'll quickly add a second sample. Alright, let's do that. D1, D1. So D1, right? Okay, now I've changed the first DOB. You have to be a bit careful with that to make sure you're on the right one. That was, of course, nonsense just now. Now I'll go to the second one here. Let's do D1 here. D1. Animal D1. There we go. And now you can see here with volume that it really can be set per sample. Now you can also set certain things for the layer here. I'll just create a new layer again, and then you'll see here as well, when I switch over the layer, it sets it there too. So now I can do the same things here as I just did. Then we can hear. Yeah, let's set this up here first. We don't have any performance yet. Controller, I'll show you that now. If we click here, by the way, if I change something here, it's global. That then changes it for everything, so it's global, basically as if we click here. Now we can see here, for example, that certain controllers are already defined for layer 1 and layer 2. The key number, for example, velocity, I can change the curve here if I want, as you can see. Here too, it runs on the same principle, which makes sense. The velocity sensitivity is here. Amplifier goes for 7, 11, and 10 is pan pitch bend. If, for example, I don't want any velocity sensitivity, I can just pull this thing all the way up. And then the sound is always the same volume. So I can basically do this for everything now. Now I just need to think for a moment. Right, that's what we have now. If I click here and then click plus once, then a new one is created. Yes, a new performance parameter. Let's just call it that for now. Let's test it and assign one to something. This one goes to layer 1. And then I can select something here again for what it should do, and then click create. And now I have it up here, which means I can now control this gain with this knob, and I can now assign a custom widget to this knob. If I want to, how that works, I'll show you in another video. But here I can select a total of 2, 4, 6, 8 performance parameters, and then control them. So this is a basic sample tool. You can't do unlimited things with it. It does have its limits, but for my purposes, it's worked well so far. I'll just go ahead and load a specific user preset here, something like Living on a Prayer, just so you can see it in action. Here, for example, I have a complex layer with, I actually didn't get a chance to show that to you just now, but it's quite important. If you press here once, you'll get into another field. Here you can also change a few things. Delay time, attack time, hold, decay, sustain, release time, cutoff frequency, resonance. These are more basic things you can do here. You can switch here. Here are parameters. Here is key mapping. And to always have this consistency for the overall layout and design, that is really something that is absolutely essential and important. So now I want you to look here, look exactly right here, and notice the percent, and the final percent. Yeah, I've got quite a bit here now. And then we could once again, about parts, for example, like you have, for instance, 2 layers here, and 1 second layer. Well, now you can't really hear the difference. But I do have ideas here on trick track, pitch off, because it's really the same on all 3 keys, which means I have here 2 different samples here, but underneath it's the same note again. So with that, you can basically work. The advantage is on the Mac, this thing simply costs nothing, and I really think it's very, very easy to use.